My ex-girlfriend, Ningbing, was incredibly wealthy. Because of her money, I became her sycophant. Every day, I flattered her diligently, until one day, her true love reappeared. On the day I broke up with Ningshui, I cautiously asked, "Do you still want the house you gave me earlier? Fang Yuan, can you just leave?" She was annoyed. Obeying her command, I hugged the property deed and ran off quickly. I had been a sycophant since elementary school. Back then, my desk mate was wealthy. She had a drawer full of pocket money every day. I ran errands for the young lady daily. 5 yuan for each errand. I was blinded by greed. I even escorted her to the restroom. At a young age, my piggy bank was filled with money. Later, the young lady transferred to another school. With the money I'd saved, I managed to finish elementary school. When I got to middle school, I started a small business. During lunch breaks, I went outside the school to buy a backpack full of snacks from small shops. Then I'd sell them at a markup during recess. The person who loved buying my snacks the most was a boy. His name was Ikong. He had several hundred yuan in pocket money each day. I wasn't sure what he was thinking back then. Every recess, he would buy dozens of yuan worth of snacks from me. But he wouldn't eat them. He'd share them with others for fun. Snack wrappers littered the floor. He'd call me over to sweep up. The first time, he gave me 20 yuan. I was extremely diligent then. Every day, I followed him around, attending to his needs. Most students didn't really understand the value of money. At that time, I was earning quite well. At my peak, I could make 300 yuan in a day. Money from students is always easier to earn than money from society. People who haven't experienced hardship, how would they know the importance of money? As for me, no mother, no father. Shrewd since childhood, every day I pondered how to make money. Later, when I entered university, I worked especially hard to earn money, toiling daily to make a living, till I met Ningbing, a second-generation rich kid, deluxe edition, and spent money without restraint, simply a God-sent money giver. So who exactly is Ningbing? A highly talented girl from the art department. Her family owns a real estate company. A true young lady. How did we meet? I was the president of the disciplinary committee. This was already the 12th time I'd caught her skipping class. Her counselor looked at the attendance records. Extremely resentful. Does being rich make her so great? Well then, student, you don't need to erase her name. Once her counselor said that, I didn't argue further. I continued to record her name every day. Finally, before the vacation, she came to find me. She asked me what was going on. I cautiously replied, "Senior, I have no choice either. If there's no way, think of one." She leaned on the sofa, looking at me irritably. Later, I actually came up with a solution for her. I took the young lady around several times. The matter was resolved. She was very satisfied with my lackey role. Perhaps she was happy, and seeing how poor I was, she casually gave me one of her gold pendants. A pendant worth 30,000 yuan. I showed the young lady my utmost respect. Every day, I waited on her morning and evening. Then one day, she asked me, "Are you trying to pursue me?" I cautiously replied, "Do you not like me messaging you? Then I won't message you anymore." She didn't say anything. After a long while, a message finally appeared in the chat box. "Your name is Fang Yuan, right?" "Yes." "Do you know Kong, the campus heartthrob?" "I do." "He failed a course." "Understood. I'll help ask around in the next couple of days." "All right. Thanks." As expected, Ningbing was the young lady in my heart. She even sent me a red envelope afterward. 5,000 yuan. I didn't stand on ceremony. After accepting it, I immediately sent a thank you emoji. Perhaps because I had accepted too much money from her at the beginning. By the time we started dating, the phrase she said to me most often was, "Fang Yuan, can you not be so materialistic?" I didn't explain. After all, I was materialistic by nature. I accepted every red envelope she gave me. From the start, I wasn't interested in her as a person. So how did I end up dating her? It all started with Hikong. Speaking of which, Hikong and I were quite fated. We attended the same middle school. Later, we got into the same university. But after entering university, because our majors were so different, we rarely kept in touch. Occasionally, we'd run into each other and say hello, but it was just a greeting, nothing more. Until one day, late at night, Zi Ningbing called me, asked if I had a car. I said yes. She said she'd been drinking, couldn't drive under the influence. She casually sent me a red envelope and asked me to pick her up in the middle of the night. I rode over on my shabby little electric scooter. The young lady looked at me and couldn't help but laugh. It's my first time riding an electric scooter. How about I help you hail a taxi? No need. Taxis are uncomfortable. Electric scooter it is. Just as well I can get some fresh air. I picked up the young lady, but before we reached the school, she started acting up from the alcohol, whispering and crying, muttering. He rejected me. It was my first time confessing to a guy. He actually rejected me. In the night wind, Zi Ningbing looked increasingly aggrieved. Later, she simply hugged my waist. Leaning against my back, she fell asleep. I stiffened. I was just here to pick someone up. Being hugged costs extra. When I stopped the scooter, Bai Ningbing confessed. She didn't confess verbally. Instead, she sent a 20,000 yuan transfer. The note was be my boyfriend. I gritted my teeth, accepted it, looked up. Zi Ningbing saw that I'd accepted the transfer, casually stuffed her phone back into her bag, contentedly entered the dormitory building. I stood under the girls' dormitory. As the cold wind blew, I finally realized the young lady wasn't confessing. Clearly, she was in a bad mood after being rejected, using me to make up for it. In the middle of the night, I looked at the balance on my phone. The more I looked, the happier I became. Finally, I happily and peacefully fell asleep. I had a girlfriend, but only Zi Ningbing knew about this. She didn't say anything. I didn't say anything either. The young lady would occasionally send me a red envelope with a note, come over for dinner, and an address. I would happily rush over immediately. How wonderful! Not only did I get a red envelope, but I also saved on a meal. Sometimes it was just the two of us, just Zi Ningbing booking a private room, leisurely enjoying her meal. She was accustomed to a life of luxury, eating slowly and gracefully. She couldn't stand me eating too much. After I gulped down a few bites, she would raise an eyebrow and sip her soup, a small bowl of soup. I'd take a sip and look up. Seeing that she had no more objections, I'd continue eating heartily. In group gatherings, I would restrain myself a bit, keeping to myself, eating quietly and slowly. Occasionally, when called upon, I'd look up at the speaker, responding with a smile, answering whatever they asked. When they stopped asking, I'd continue eating. Someone said I seemed very well behaved, told me to make myself at home. I just smiled and nodded along. As for being obedient, I find it hard to comment. I can only say, if you were an orphan, you'd be even more well-behaved than me. I behaved properly. Later, on my birthday, Zi Ningbing invited me to celebrate. I went on the young lady's big yacht. Enjoying the sea breeze felt incredibly comfortable. I closed my eyes to make a wish. She interrupted lazily from the sofa. What wish do you have? Just say it out loud. Why keep it to yourself? I hesitated for a moment, then decisively spoke up. I want to have a house. She raised an eyebrow. Well, wouldn't you know it? My family builds houses. Congratulations! Your wish aligns perfectly. I'll take you to transfer the ownership in a couple of days. She leaned back, still lazily playing with her phone. The things she casually promised. For a long time, I suppressed my heartbeat, not daring to ask if it was real. I just cut a piece of cake and sat beside her, eating. The sunset over the water was beautiful. The cream was sweet. As if by some mysterious force, I turned my head. I wanted to kiss her just once. I didn't want the house anymore. I could always save enough money to buy one myself. Right now, I really wanted to kiss her. But I didn't say anything, nor did I move. She continued idly playing with her phone, seemed to scroll to a voice message. I didn't catch what it said, but she furrowed her brows. Let's go back. It's getting dark. She left first, saying she had something to do. I rented a small electric scooter by the roadside. It wasn't until I got back to the dormitory that I learned Hikong was sent to the hospital today due to low blood sugar. I leaned over, just in time to see photos someone had taken at the hospital on my roommate's phone. And there was Zi Ningbing standing right next to him. Suddenly, I remembered the cake I hadn't finished. After a long while, I yawned, took my phone, and went to bed. For a few days, she was busy. I didn't send her any messages either. Until the day Hikong was discharged from the hospital. She messaged me, invited me out to go on an outing. She sent a red envelope, so I happily grabbed my small bag and went. Only when I arrived did I realize they had brought 2 cars. Exactly 8 people. I happened to be the extra 9th person. I was stunned for a moment. Everyone sat in their seats without speaking. For a moment, I felt a bit awkward. But since I was already here, it wasn't appropriate to say I was leaving. Otherwise, it'd be even more awkward. She looked at me, frowning. Finally, her gaze fell on the tour bus beside us. Hikong couldn't help but grab me. Come on up, we'll squeeze in. There was still some space in the back seat where he was sitting, but he had just been discharged from the hospital, clearly not feeling well. I immediately shook my head. I'll take the tour bus. It'll get me there too. Hikong looked at me. Our eyes met. After a long while, he finally let go of my hand. Their cars drove off. I sat alone in the pavilion. It wasn't tourist season now. There weren't many people, just me sitting there alone. I waited for a long time. The tour bus arrived. I got on. By the time I reached the mountaintop, it was already a bit late. The group had already started their picnic. I didn't know most of them. Had only eaten together once or twice. I found a corner. Sat there. Sat from noon till afternoon. She was grilling skewers. Occasionally, a skewer was handed to me. The surrounding scenery was beautiful. After eating until I was half full and enjoying the view, I wanted to go for a stroll. I told her. She seemed to have something on her mind today. Didn't even look at me, just gave a simple response. The mountain air was great, because I came from an orphanage. I rarely had time to go out and play. I wandered for almost an hour. Estimating that they were almost done eating, I walked back. But things were somewhat beyond my expectations. I looked at the empty clearing. At that moment, I realized that people cannot be without grievances. It was already dusk. The tour buses had stopped running. I had to walk down the mountain. The sun was setting over the western hills. I was alone in the mountains again. Halfway down, my phone ran out of battery and shut down. I continued walking quietly. This path was somewhat like the one from my childhood, the one when I ran away from the orphanage. The same dim light, the same gradually blurring surroundings, till it turned into impenetrable darkness. I couldn't find the way home, and my mother wasn't coming back. I looked around, took a few terrified steps. The moonlight shone on the dim path. I was scared. I shouted with all my might, "Senior!" An echo came back from the mountains. It scared me so much that I felt a chill. Later, I walked the whole night and was scared the whole night. Finally, when dawn broke, I met a bus driver at the bus stop. The driver helped me charge my phone a bit. He looked back at me and was startled by my appearance. "Were you here all night? Why didn't you call the police?" I held up my phone. "Forgot to check the battery." "No battery. Don't come hiking alone in the future. Bring friends if you do come. I did. Though maybe she doesn't count. Got it. Thank you, sir. I turned on my phone and realized that last night she had sent me a message. She said she left first, told me to go back early. I gave a bitter smile. Dragging my tired body, I leaned back in the seat and fell asleep. Xingxui still invited me out to eat every few days. One day, perhaps remembering the promise she made on my birthday, she transferred one of her houses to me. The house wasn't very big. 3 bedrooms and 1 living room. No one had ever lived in it. To buy Ningbing, it was probably just the kind she kept around to give away casually. On the day I received the property deed, I was as happy as ever. I cheerfully went to check out my little house. She didn't understand. It's just a small house. Do you like it that much? I nodded earnestly. Senior, you don't understand. I was still in the disciplinary department. When I had no classes, I'd help cover for Bai Ningbing. Her requirements for me weren't high. Just that nothing would go wrong when she skipped classes at school. I was diligent and responsible. During the New Year holiday, others went home. I didn't. Because I didn't have a home. I went to my little house. The house was simply decorated. Didn't even have a TV. I thought, might as well buy a TV before the new year. While browsing home appliances, I ran into Xingming. She seemed to have brought her younger brother out. Her brother was quite cute, about 8 or 9 years old. She didn't seem like someone who knew how to coax kids. As soon as she saw me, she grabbed me. I immediately acted obsequiously and went over. Senior, do you know how to fold origami cranes? I do. Help me teach him. I'll send you a red envelope. Sure. Hearing that, I nodded immediately. Only then did I notice the piece of paper in her brother's hand. At that moment, holding the paper, he was tearfully pouting. Hearing my words, he handed me the paper in his hand. It was an ordinary piece of colored paper. I folded it. The little guy hugged the folded crane and ran back into the group of children. She frowned. I don't understand what's so special about a cheap piece of colored paper. I shook my head. It's not about money. If you like something, no matter how cheap it is, it's a treasure. Perhaps she didn't expect me to say that. She glanced at me. Here to shop? Yes. Want to buy a TV? You helped me out. Let's go. I'll help you pick one. She helped me choose. Xingxui didn't care much about money. In other words, she was going to give it to me. I immediately became excited. Thank you, senior. She bought me a pretty good TV. I was somewhat familiar with her. But far from being her boyfriend, maybe just friends. Or perhaps just acquaintances. I was a senior. This year, I was already 21. I made dumplings by myself. Watched the brilliant fireworks outside the window alone. Young people ran in the streets, holding fireworks. I carried the fireworks I bought and mingled among them. Walked to the riverside, watching the fireworks rise into the sky. Back when I was in the orphanage. On New Year's Eve, we'd finish dinner early and go to bed. But none of us could sleep. We just waited for midnight. At midnight, firecrackers would sound outside. We would all gather by the small window, watching that scene. At first, only one person shed tears. Later, all the children cried. Everyone was considerate enough not to cry out loud. We just gazed out the window, silently shedding tears. We didn't want to make the uncle who took care of us feel sad, but we still missed home. Today, as I watched the fireworks, I cried again. The surroundings were lively and bustling. I looked up at the brilliant sky, smiling while wiping away tears. Someone tugged at me. I looked down. It was her younger brother. He was holding a small toy tiger, wearing a tiger hat. His eyes sparkled brightly. Big brother who can fold paper cranes. What's your name? Where's your sister? I picked up the little boy. My name is Li Huang. Sister is over there. Following the direction he pointed, I saw that group of people. They were the same ones from the mountain trip last time, and Xiningxui stood at the center. They had bought many beautiful fireworks, coloring the night sky in vibrant hues. Their fireworks were splendid and grand. I could also go over to take a look. I put the little boy down, made sure he ran over safely. I took a few steps back and left. On the first day of the Lunar New Year, around noon, I was awakened by someone knocking on the door. She had come. I looked at her. She handed Li Huang to me. He said he wanted to come wish you a happy new year. He was making such a fuss. Big brother, happy new year. I hadn't expected anyone to come and wish me a happy new year. I searched around for a while. Finally, stubbornly found a piece of red paper to make him a red envelope. But before they could leave, someone else knocked on the door. On the first day of the Lunar New Year, there were quite a few people. I opened the door and was suddenly hugged tightly. Big brother, did you miss me? I missed you so much. The girl hugged me tightly, as if she wished she could merge into me. I struggled desperately. Let go. I won't. Ahem, someone's here. She released me, seeing Xinningbing in my room holding the little boy. She pondered briefly, then looked at me incredulously. Brother, you didn't become someone's stepfather for money, did you? Don't be ridiculous. Am I that kind of person? Do I look that old? It was Bai Ningbing who spoke first. Liu Ryan secretly rolled her eyes, whispered to me, "Who is she?" With that commanding tone. Anyone would think she's your mom. My friend, Bai Ningbing. My friend's younger brother, Ji Huang. My non-biological sister. Liu Ryan. Liu Ryan was unhappy. Brother, why am I your sister? Can I be your sweetheart? No, I don't have that kind of fetish. Interests can be cultivated. No way, I'll make a concession. You can call me sister instead. See nearer. Don't go! What are we having for lunch? I took an overnight train last night. I'm sleepy and hungry. Brother, go sit by the table for a while. 3 minutes. I'll heat it up in the microwave and bring it to you. No! You always burn your hands using the microwave. I'll bring it myself. You'll burn your hands too. It's different. If I get burned, it's my own hand. Get lost. I bought anti-scald gloves. Outside the kitchen, Xinningbing watched us for a while, then left with her younger brother. After eating, Liu Ryan happily went back to her room to sleep. She went to my room. I hadn't bought any bedding. Currently, only my room in the house is livable. I hadn't expected Liu Ryan to come. Our universities are too far apart. One in the south, one in the north. Just getting here requires for transfers. Tickets are hard to get during the new year. Every year when I call her, she can't make it. This year, I even specially called Liu Ryan during the holiday. She said she couldn't get a ticket, but she came anyway. She arrived on the first day of the Lunar New Year. We hadn't seen each other for 3 years. The girl from back then has changed a lot. She's grown much taller. But when I see her, she still seems like the girl she used to be. On the first day of the Lunar New Year, some big stores had already opened. I bought a set of bedding and a set of sheets. Just these cost me nearly 2,000 yuan. After buying them, I felt a pang of pain. Liu Ryan's quilt needed to be high quality. She has an allergic constitution. I still remember the day she first came to the orphanage. She was assigned to the bed next to mine. They asked me to take care of her for a while, but she had an allergic reaction in the middle of the night. In the morning, I saw a child who looked like a swollen pig's head. Almost scared me to death. Finally realizing what happened, I carried her out. The doctor said she was allergic to the bedding. She nearly suffocated. After that, Liu Ryan had her own special little quilt, the kind that others couldn't touch. I was the only exception, because when she first came, she didn't know how to air quilts or change duvet covers. Ever since that day when I carried her to the hospital, she has been especially attached to me. She's allergic to everything, but not to me. She sticks to me as if she's coated with glue. She wishes she could cling to me all day long. When she was little, a tiny tot easy to hold. Now, she's already 1.7 meters tall. It's impolite for her to hang on me now. Liu Ryan woke up. It was already 8 in the evening. She gradually came out to find me. As soon as she saw me, she instinctively wanted to lean over. I pushed her away. She then came to her senses. Brother, good evening. Reheat the food yourself. Remember to wear the microwave gloves. Your room is next door. Brother, do you want to see my suitcase? Okay, brother. I brought you a gift. I suspiciously opened the suitcase. It wasn't big. Inside was a bouquet of roses. Brother, Happy New Year. I looked at the bouquet and said, Happy New Year. Brother, there's a bank card inside the flowers. The password is your birthday. Liu Ryan. Yes, there's no need. You have to accept it, brother. These might not be necessary for you, but they're very important to me. Not just because I like you, but also because I want to give you something. Even if you choose to marry someone else later, or live alone, those aren't reasons for you to reject me. Brother, I didn't dare to come before. I had no money. Without any capital, I didn't dare to say these things. I didn't dare to come see you. Brother, today I finally could come. For so many years, I've really missed you. Get lost. Don't eat. Take your flowers and get back to your room. No, I'm hungry. Don't be so touched, brother. Who's touched? I call this a condition of tear incontinence. I just tend to cry easily. Liu Ryan stayed with me for a while. I took her shopping for some new clothes. Many of her clothes require custom fabrics, not to show off, but because custom fabrics are more stable compared to others. This girl at my place is the true young lady type. This is the 7th time this year I've bumped into Ziningbing while shopping. I'm almost getting used to it. She looked at me, her face more silent than usual. Liu Ryan doesn't like her. As soon as she sees her, she starts to complain, always putting on a sullen face. Brother, how much do you owe her? No way! I'll sell myself to pay it back for you. Otherwise, it's quite uncomfortable facing a lump of coal every day. Shut up! She gave me a house. The one we're living in. How? Just that? If we pool our money together, we can afford it. If not, return it. Just be quiet. Your brother, for this house. Accompanied these young ladies on a picnic. Ended up walking mountain roads all night. This is what I deserve. Brother, you have it tough. Wait for me. The company I started with my friends is making some progress. Once I earn big money, I'll buy 10 or 8 houses. Brother, you should go to graduate school. Then I'll come over to accompany you in your studies. When my friends ask why I'm here, I'll say I found a handsome grad student. Just thinking about it makes me happy. Ziningbing looked at our two heads huddled together. Couldn't help but frown. What are you two whispering about that you need to be so close? Liu Ryan lowered her head and muttered, talking bad about you. But she looked up and smiled again. Ziningbing, I won't be around after this. Please help take care of my brother. My brother is timid. Don't make him do things like walking mountain roads all night. He gets so scared. Ziningbing was stunned. When did I ever make him ... But she stopped halfway through her sentence, staring intently at me. I shook my head. It wasn't me who said it. It has nothing to do with me. Meanwhile, Liu Ryan pulled her aside and continued. Zining Shui, thank you so much for taking care of him during this time. If there's anything you like, I'll give it to you. I don't need anything, she replied, her expression not too pleased. But Liu Ryan wasn't angry. Instead, she smiled. I'll add you on WeChat. If you ever feel like you're lacking anything, just let me know. My brother is here alone. Our family isn't around. He's also a bit timid. If you need anything in the future, just contact me. Liu Ryan had to leave before the new semester started. She dawdled for a long time before leaving. Only then did she step out the door. Brother, remember me, okay? I leaned in and hugged her. She was stunned, stared blankly at me. Brother, is this a response? I didn't say anything, just quietly slipped the bank card into her pocket. After a long while, she realized and carefully hugged me back. After she passed through security, I pointed to her pocket. She touched it and froze. Brother, come back. Take back the card. I still have money. Brother, don't go. Brother. Sir. Can I go over there for a moment? Please give this card to that guy. Brother, turn around. I covered my ears and strode out the door. Actually, it's better when Liu Ryan and I don't meet. When we don't meet, we just share things. We occasionally think of each other. Those feelings don't seem so heavy. But once we meet, I can't accept the separation. No matter what, I can't block the sadness in my heart about parting. There was a full 800,000 yuan in Liu Ryan's bank card. She probably scraped together all the money she had left, gathered it all and brought it over. It was too much. If she had given less, I would have accepted it. After Liu Ryan left, I also started the new semester. Second semester of junior year. I thought about preparing for graduate school, so I resigned from my position as department head. Thinking of Zinningbing, I specially contacted her. After that, it was no longer useful for her to send me red envelopes. She could contact the counselor or others instead. After a long time, she replied with just one message. Okay. After confirming, I didn't pay much attention. For a long time, she didn't contact me. Until one day, I heard she had a new boyfriend. I originally thought it was Hikong, but after asking around, it wasn't. I only heard that he was a very handsome man. To confirm one last thing, I went to see her with my property deed in hand. At that time, she was still at her family's villa. Beside her was a handsome guy. When she saw me, she frowned. I hesitated and spoke. This house ... Fang Yuan, you came to see me just to say this? The money from before regarding your confession, since we were never together. I think it's not appropriate for me to accept it. Fang Yuan. Zinningbing was truly angry. She looked at me. Her eyes filled with fire. Are you saying this now to sever all ties with me? I'm not. I don't want to see you right now. Can you get lost? I was stunned. After a long time, I replied with one word. Okay. I left holding the property deed. Later, I thought, this counts as compensation for my grievances. I can't go through all that and end up with nothing but grievances. I happily went home holding the property deed. If I don't take it now, I won't get it later. Even if I sell it, it's worth 800,000 yuan. I can buy Liu Ryan a watch. Later, when Zinningbing graduated, I saw her once again. She was wearing a beautiful graduation gown. As we passed by each other, she grabbed me. Fang Yuan, was there ever a moment when you liked me? Not because of money, but just liked me and were together with me? I thought for a moment, shook my head. Senior, you are liked precisely because of your money. What do you mean? Because you're very generous. Generous people are accustomed to giving things to others. And those things always give people the illusion of being loved. I smiled. When you said you'd give me a house before, I was dumbfounded. At that time, I thought, could it be that you like me too? Otherwise, why would you be so generous to me? But soon I figured it out. Because you have many houses, so you didn't mind. I think true affection shouldn't be like this. It shouldn't be that I was trapped in the mountains for a night, and no one noticed anything unusual. I hardly have any particularly close people in this city. That mountain was so dark. At that time, I was scared. I could only pin my hopes on you. I kept thinking at the time, wondering if perhaps you had already come to find me. But I missed you because my phone was dead. I shouted many times. Later, my throat was almost hoarse. But until dawn, I saw the bus stop. You grabbed my hand and didn't let go. My sleeve was wrinkled from being pulled. Only then did I hear a low explanation. I'm not. Senior. I will get married after graduation. I will send you an invitation then. You must come. She looked up at me, dazed as if in a trance. After a long time, she replied, Okay, by Ningbing's side story. Fang Yuan is getting married. I watched him marry someone else at his wedding. He said that person was his childhood sweetheart. But if we're talking about childhood sweethearts, shouldn't I have known him earlier? The first time I met Fang Yuan wasn't in university, but in second grade of elementary school. At that time, my family was still developing, not as wealthy as it is now. My parents were still very busy. They would only give me handfuls of pocket money, letting me buy snacks myself. When my parents moved inland for work, they also transferred me to a local public elementary school. The people at that school weren't very friendly. Or to put it another way, they bullied me. Because I had money. Because I was small and thin. When my money was taken many times, I told my deskmate at the time. My deskmate was named Fang Yuan, not just someone with the same name. It was him, that little rascal, the one who seemed cute on the surface, but would hit people with bricks behind their backs. He said he could protect me. The first time he fought, he charged me 20 yuan. That day after school, he fought with those kids holding a brick. Later, he stepped on one with each foot and grabbed two with his hands, making them apologize to me and promise not to bully me again. Only then did he let them go. He took 20 yuan from me and happily went home. The second time he fought, he charged me 80 yuan. Not that he overcharged, but because the second time he was even more impressive. Those who robbed my money secretly bullied me outside, so they tried to rob me in the restroom. I didn't have money with me at that time, so they blocked me in the restroom. Kept me there until class started. I was still very young then. Felt like I couldn't go on living. I was extremely upset. Then Fang Yuan came again. When he entered the restroom, he casually picked up a feces scoop next to the toilet. At first, he just used the feces scoop to hit people. The group didn't dare to get close. They kept dodging back and forth, but it wasn't effective. They just hid where he couldn't reach, refusing to let us leave. Finally, he got annoyed. He directly scooped up a full ladle from the nearby toilet. The group was shocked. All shouted, "Don't come over!" He indeed didn't go over. He just flung scoop after scoop of feces at them. The smell! That day, the whole school was in chaos. The school wanted everyone to call their parents. It was on that day. Fang Yuan looked at the teacher. I can write more self-criticism letters. But I grew up in an orphanage. I don't have parents. I was stunned. Only then did I know he was an orphan. I said he acted bravely for a just cause. My parents also said so when they came. In the end, he didn't write a self-criticism letter, nor did he call his parents. Instead, he received a 500 yuan reward. Of course, the reward was from our family. Later, Fang Yuan came again, asked me if he could get money for running errands for me. I said, "Didn't you just get 500 yuan?" He shook his head. The school gave it directly to the orphanage. I won't get it anymore. I crazily bought snacks, bought meals. I gave him a lot of money for running errands. But later, I was going to transfer schools. Before transferring schools, I found my neighbor. I gave away my favorite doll. I asked him to help take care of Fang Yuan. My neighbor's name was Yikong. He did indeed do so later. But I stayed abroad for a long time. So long that I almost forgot this memory. I went abroad at the 9. Didn't return until I was 18. When I came back, I already had a generation gap with this country. Unlike their 9-year college entrance exam, I was an exchange student. I always felt that I looked down on everything here. I didn't attend classes till they told me I might not get a graduation certificate. I was scolded by my father. Finally, I went to the student council. I saw that guy. At first, I just found him familiar. He was buried in my memories, but I didn't recall him. I just felt he was greedy, and I've always despised such people. But I also always felt he was somehow quite likable. I thought of ways to approach him. Watching him eat made me happy. Celebrating his birthday also made me happy. I still remember when he looked up at me. His eyes were filled with starlight, bright and sparkling. Fang Yuan is very capable. He always handles things quickly and well. It's as if he has a solution for everything. In this aspect, I could never compare. I realized this too. But I was inexplicably a bit angry. It seemed that aside from money, he didn't really need me. That time during the outing, I was also inexplicably angry. Since he was so good, he could just keep being strong. I was waiting for him to encounter difficulties and come to me. But I never thought his phone ran out of battery. I also didn't think that he would stay in that dark mountain for a whole night. And after that day, he seemed to drift further and further away from me. He no longer looked at me with those expectant eyes. I've dated many boyfriends. I know too well how to manipulate people's hearts. So I gave him a house. I didn't choose the best one, because most people wouldn't be satisfied. They would just complain why I couldn't give a bigger one. But Fang Yuan didn't complain. He didn't say anything. That's just how he is, calm and unruffled. If given something, he appreciates it. If not, it's fine. It was at that moment that I realized he really had no expectations of me anymore. Later, he wanted to return the house to me. At that time, I felt devastated. What he returned wasn't just the house. He wanted to tell me we were cutting all ties, to make a clean break. I couldn't accept the house back. I didn't want things to be so clean-cut. It's better to keep things entangled. Better to keep them entangled. As long as the house was in his hands, I would always have a chance to turn things around. Later, he got married. I didn't give up, as long as the house was with him. If his marriage wasn't happy, it would be easy for me to step in. But he changed houses. That Liu Ryan even helped him rent out the one I gave him. Liu Ryan's side story. Overnight success. To give brother a surprise, on the first day of the Lunar New Year, I arrived at brother's house. There was a woman at his home, and she had a child with her. It scared me to death. I hugged my brother slowly. My brother. In the past, my parents weren't dead, but they disliked that I was prone to allergies, so they didn't want me anymore. They abandoned me. I couldn't find my way home. I was taken to the orphanage. That was my first time there. I looked at everything in fear. Later, the uncle was very busy, so he handed me over to a brother about my age. In the middle of the night, my body became red and swollen again. It was itchy and painful, but I held back. Later, I felt it was getting harder and harder to breathe. My brain couldn't function anymore. It seemed like dawn was breaking. I seemed to be picked up by someone. That brother shouted, "She seems to be having an allergic reaction. Call 120 emergency number." I tried hard to open my eyes but couldn't. I reached out and only grasped a corner of clothing. "Don't leave me. I won't do it again." Brother patted me. "Don't worry. 120 will be here soon. Brother will take you to the hospital. It'll be okay at the hospital." When I woke up, I was in the hospital. Brother was beside me. I reached out, held his sleeve, and slept more soundly. Later, they bought me pure silk sheets and duvet covers. Brother said I was being pampered. He said silk has to be hand-washed. He taught me to wash them carefully. But there was only one set of sheets and covers. After washing them, I didn't know where to sleep. I went to find brother. In the middle of the night, I snuck into his bed. No allergic reaction. Very strange. It seemed that sleeping in brother's bed, I wouldn't have allergies. Hugging brother also didn't cause allergies. Later, the doctor explained to me that it might be related to psychological factors. I don't think so. Brother is the angel who came to save me. Brother, my dear brother. Marriage. Brother's suit must be the most handsome. Best if it's custom made. Better if personally designed. Brother's wedding ring. It's better to have someone design it. Make it unique. Brother, you're here. Hug me. Liu Ryan, you're 22. Hugging has nothing to do with age. Then what does it have to do with? I was pushed away. But I didn't give up. Considering how much I want brother to hug me now, brother knows I've prepared many things. What things? Just marry me and you'll know.